Hey guys, Matt Burnett with Allegiant Canine. I am out here playing with my dog Mila right now. We're playing a little fetch and tug right now, and she is loving it. She is very, very excited. Right, go get it. Good girl. Mila is a rescue dog. She is just an all-around American bully. She's got American Pit Bull Terrier, American Staffordshire Terrier, and American Bulldog, and just a super sweet dog. I have no idea about anything in her past, and honestly, I don't really care because her past is in the past, and she is a dog, and she is not thinking about stuff that happened in her past, okay? If there's one thing that I try to encourage rescues to advocate for and rescue dogs, it is that dogs are not sitting there just thinking about all the things that happened to them 2-3 years ago, whatever. I think that it needs to be said that reactivity, aggression, biting, barking, lunging, nipping, whatever the thing might be, is very, very misunderstood in the dog world. Sometimes we have to acknowledge it for what it is. Sometimes it's just behavior. Sometimes the dog is just going, I'm going to experiment with this behavior and hope that it achieves something that I want. Which sometimes it does. Sometimes we give them exactly what they're looking for, and sometimes we prove exactly the opposite, that, hey, there's no reason for you to feel this. So our job essentially is to be able to get a good read on why the dog is offering the behavior in the first place. Are we putting too much pressure on the dog? Is our expectation level too high? Are we being unfair to the dog? Or do they have every right, or are they completely wrong in offering the behavior, or do they have every right to do that? And ultimately, when it comes down to putting on bites, especially on kids and other dogs, we tend to be a little bit more careful about that. But a dog willing to growl, lunge, bark, put on a bite on another dog is a problem. And frankly, there are dogs that should be euthanized when this kind of thing happens. Here's the deal though, it's very normal for a dog to actually get protective, territorial, possessive once they actually get adopted. It doesn't mean that the shelter or rescue that you got your dog from hid something from you. It just means that they're getting comfortable in your home. It's also very likely that you have pretty bad structure in your home and they think that they need to protect it because they have full range of the whole house. It doesn't mean that you have to crate your dog all the time. It also doesn't mean that you need to let your dog run free all the time either. So there has to be some balance there, okay? So right now, just to show you how much trust I have Mila out here with me. We have a few acres over here, and it's just nice to be able to let her off leash out here and to run and play fetch and go sniff for things. It's very, very good for her brain. And I will say Mila is the exact type of dog that you hear from all the time. People say that's an aggressive dog, right? Now, here's the deal. There are times where a dog is gonna make an aggressive showing because they're a dog, all right? There's times that it's completely normal for the dog to do what they're doing, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that, because too many dogs are euthanized today, put down, killed, whatever you want to say, or rehomed because of this. And the problem with that is, as soon as that dog goes into a shelter or into a rescue foster, immediately they're going to have to increase the structure for that dog, which means, guess what? They're going to put them in a crate, they're going to put them in a kennel, which is great. That's a good thing for that dog. It's a good thing for most dogs, because where we mess up is we give too much freedom too soon, and then we have these super high expectations of our dogs, which creates resentment and frustration, because we're expecting this huge thing out of the dog and they're still a dog, right? Just like I'm a human being. I'm not perfect. I'm not always going to deliver on exactly what I say, but I make my best effort, right? So it's important that we not only have fair expectations, but that we communicate them clearly for our dogs, okay? So I'm going to show you guys how to read that and also how to do that, all right? Hope this is enjoyable for you. I hope it's helpful. All right, so what is the first category of dogs that growl, bark, bite, lunge? The first category is behavioral dogs, all right? And again, labeling dogs is not helpful. It's just to help you understand what might be going on there. Behavior, as it's offered, would be something like a younger dog, maybe under 2 years, that has never had a certain situation happen before. Maybe you put a little bit of pressure on them and they snap, right? It happens all the time. It happens with dogs that come from breeders all the time. I get phone calls all the time from these clients, okay? It's very, very common. And then these people think, oh, well, we have now an aggressive dog on our hands. And that's not the case. But you do have a dog. It's not a human. It's not a child. It's a living animal that you have now welcomed into your home. And in all likelihood, you've given them too much freedom and very little training. So a couple of things that you can do to start to identify what kind of behavior that you're dealing with is as follows, all right? Behavior is just that. It's just behavior, all right? That means that they're experimenting. As soon as the dog gets a interruption in thought process or maybe a correction for that behavior, they stop. They're like, okay, got it, not worth it. I'm gonna give that up really quickly. And they go, I'm just not gonna offer that anymore, okay? The second level is reactivity, all right? So reactivity has a little bit of a mindset to it, and it's a little bit more persistent, meaning that the dog is like very keyed in on it. So I see this a lot with dogs that are in, let's say that they're in a car and they see cars passing on both sides and they're running from side to side barking at the cars, or you're walking the dog on the leash for the first time in the neighborhood and they're just going absolutely insane, lunging at those dogs, whatever. Some of that could be behavioral. Some of it could just be excitement or overstimulation, also called flooding, which is not a good thing to do. It's giving the dog more exposure than they're ready for. So if your exposure and the amount of freedom that you're giving your dog is greater than the preparation that you have put in for behavior, then you're more than likely flooding your dog or overstimulating them, okay? So reactivity looks something like this. The dog sees, they look at the other dog, okay? Or they look at the person, or they look at the decoy, whatever it might be. It could be a squirrel. And looking, there's no problem with that. So I don't correct that. I don't get to that point yet. Loading is where the dog starts to kind of think, what should I do here? That's where you see the chest bow up a little bit. You see the ears go up, the tail goes up, the hackles go up, and you see the dog going, and they're taking that nice big breath in to just explode on that other dog, okay? If I give a correction, that's when I give it during the loading phase, because what I really don't want to happen is the lunge, and that's that last step. If a dog gets to the step of lunging, that means that they're going to rehearse that reactivity that they have desperately wanted to do for so long, or maybe they got to do it for the first time, all right? So the last level is, again, aggression. Aggression not only has a very serious mindset to it, the dog is looking for opportunities to make an aggressive showing, to bark, bite, lunge, nip. That's serious, and there's a fraction of those dogs that need to be euthanized, and I think that has to be said. Usually aggressive dogs are dogs that can only be handled by maybe 1 or 2 people, and that's it. If your dog's not in that category, say thank you, Jesus, because I am very, very grateful, and I can probably work with this, all right? There are some aggressive dogs, and I'll tell the clients, you can never have this dog around kids or other dogs ever again, right? It's very likely, though, that you have seen some inklings of behavior that you just don't like, and you're dealing more with like a behavioral or a reactive dog, okay? All right, so what if you have a actually reactive dog, a dog that really does want to bite another dog or bite a person? They're really exploding. Oh, look at that girl. You are so pretty. You ready? Wait. Oh, good girl. Yeah, good girl, Miwa. Good job. All right, so with reactive dogs, this is something called drive channeling, okay? Good girl, I love you. We're out here playing fetch right now, which is one of Mila's favorite games. And if you don't have some way to mentally challenge your dog every single day, then it's very, very easy to develop that. There's a few different things that you can do, all right? One of those things is through special games, and we're playing fetch and tug right now. The tug is very subtle. I'm just grabbing the ball a little bit, but you can tell she is 100% keyed into what I'm doing right now. The ball has a lot of value, therefore I have a lot of relevance, okay? Because I don't leave balls just out everywhere. Break! I need some sort of special game that I can teach the dog a system of communication. What that means is I should have a way to communicate to that dog when they're released away from me, and the word that I use for that is break. You've heard me say it a couple of times. The word that I use to release the dog towards me is yes. The word that I use to pay the dog in place is good, meaning that they're innocent in front of me, they're giving me eye contact in front of me, whatever the behavior might be, and I say good, and I give them some kibble. I give them a ball. I give them some pets on the head. Good girl. There's a good girl. All right, you want kibble? You want kibble? Good girl. I see. Good. You say hi? Good. Break. Nice. And you notice the tone changes too. All right, so if you don't have something that you can use to communicate with your dog through games, I would highly suggest that you learn how to do some fetch and tug, that you learn how to do some get it. Oh, good girl, good job. That you learn how to do some shaping exercises, or that you take the dog on some structured walks, okay? So those are just 3 options that you can use to channel some of that drive. Good girl. Okay, you ready? I'm gonna do a big one. All right, so if you are working on some drive channeling exercises like fetch or tug, or doing some shaping exercises, I like to call this one the yo-yo game, where I'm throwing out, good girl, you found it. You got it, girl. Good girl. Very nice. Sit. Good. Say hi. Big wave. Big wave. You say hi? Oh, that was a good spin. Say hi. Good. You ready? Get it. Good girl. Very nice. Now notice, no tools, no nothing. She's naked out here. She's running around naked. All right. If you have a reactive dog, it's very likely that they're not getting that drive expressed in some way. All right. The other part of that, so that's your structure. That's how you're teaching the dog to act. That's putting relevance on the handler. That's focusing on you when you're on the walk, etc. If you don't have some way of doing that, you need to start there first. All right. So that's your first step. The second step is now you need to go out and get some exposure. All right. And exposure, all that is meeting the world in different ways. So that could be, hey, we're going to take a walk inside our house, right? That's pretty low exposure, but you should start there if you can't do that yet. So doing the turnabouts that we teach, if you go to our structured walking video, it goes through 3 phases of how you can teach the dog not to pull on the leash, not to forge ahead, but to walk in a nice loose leash heel. And in structured walking, I always tell my clients, start inside your home, start in your living room. All you need is like a 3 by 30 foot little swath of concrete, or a long hallway to do this turnabout drill. And then once you've mastered that inside your home, now take it out to your sidewalk. Now take it out to your driveway. Now take it out to the sidewalk in front of your house. Now take it out to the road, to the neighborhood, to a park, to the downtown area. We have some great spots here close that are downtown Columbia, downtown Franklin, that are awesome places for exposure when the dog is ready for it. So that's not the first place that I'm taking the dog, okay? So if there's another one that I would say is a very popular thing for people to do that I would highly discourage, is flooding your dog with a ton of people before they're really ready for it. So if you're having a party, or there are going to be people around, especially if they're drinking, the dog needs to be put up, okay? The reason for that is we tend to be a little bit more erratic. We tend to be a little bit more erratic when we're drinking. Where'd you put it? You lost it, silly pants. I know exactly where it is, but I'm gonna let you find it. There's some mole holes here, and she is digging, like she's sticking her whole head inside there. So don't get your dog to the point where they're being exposed to people who don't really understand them, who haven't met them yet, okay? There's a process of how you want to do that. There's another video that I'm going to be putting out on how to introduce your dog to other people, to other dogs, to cats, to reduce the possibility of having a behavioral, reactive, or aggressive explosion onto that decoy or stimuli, okay? So number one, build structure. Number two, you're going to expose your dog to things only as they're prepared to deal with it, all right? So here's the deal. If they're meeting your parents or your kids or your grandkids or your next door neighbor or whatever for the very first time, this is how you want to do it, okay? You want to engage the senses in the proper order so as not to flood the dog with all of this stimulation all at once before they're ready for it, which is going to cause the dog inevitably to explode, all right? Quick outtake. So I was actually recording the video and I totally forgot to go through the order of the senses. So here it is, all right? Anytime that you are introducing yourself or someone else to another dog, this is what you need to do. There's the dog down there. He's being insane right now. I'm going to turn away from the dog. I'm going to squat. I'm going to take a handful of food here and I'm going to stick it back behind me. What that does is it allows the dog to meet me in the following order. I can say, "Hi, Abbott, what are you doing? Good boy." He comes up behind me, he sniffs, sniffs, sniffs. He's probably sniffing my butt a little bit. He's also sniffing the food. And then as he takes that food, he's going from hearing to smelling to tasting to touching me. He's initiating that to eventually eye contact, all right? What we do a lot of times, especially men, is we go, "Hi, I'm Matt," and we want to reach in, right? People go, "Oh, hi, doggy," like this. That is really, really intimidating for a dog because you're going in the exact opposite order. You're going eye contact, touch, and they're like, "Screw that, I'm not doing that," right? So you've got to slow it down a little bit. All right, cut back to the video now. This is where, as a dog trainer, I have to be the vitamin and prepare you for the reality that this is gonna happen if you do it, all right? It's gonna happen, and you've got to take it slow, right? So you've got to be patient with the dog and know that, hey, I put you in a bad spot, buddy. That's totally my fault. We've had dogs return before. There's nothing wrong with that. If you need to bring the dog back, bring the dog back, right? The idea isn't that we think that the dog is not a good fit for you or whatever. It's just that if you're not willing to put in the work of just introducing the dog to people properly, then you're probably not going to do the work of creating structure and progressive exposure. You're just not, realistically. All right, so let's be honest with ourselves, take a breath and say, am I ready for this, right? A lot of people will say, well, I'm not equipped to deal with this right now. Well, I'm here to equip you. I can help you with that. That's my specialty. I can help you build the muscle memory and the mindset that you need to help start to curb that behavior, okay? So in the developing of that exposure on one hand and that structure on the other, you create the magical thing that is, I would call it the combination of the art and science of dog training, which is predictability. All right, everybody wants it. Everybody wants to have it. They love it. They talk about it. They want that predictability, but only a few have it. And there's a reason why. They haven't changed their mindset and they haven't changed their muscle memory, okay? So what do you need to do to create predictability, which creates freedom? You need to do exposure and structure, all right? You need to do some games. You need to do some shaping. You need to do some structured walking. You need to do some sniff walking. And if you do 5 to 10 minutes of that a day, then your dog is going to be a completely different dog. When I got Mila, I was a dog trainer, and I didn't have time to train her just like little training sessions. So guess what? We did her training on walks. That was when we had time. So I did exactly this. I have my training pouch here. I'd bring a little toy tug with me and a leash, and we would go out and do some work, right? So when a dog comes into the home for the first time, we're usually so tempted to just give them all this freedom. Well, I don't want to use a crate. Well, I think that crating is cruel. I think that we should let the dog be out and free. Well, that might work for a 7-8-year-old dog, but if you adopted a dog between 0 and 4 years old that you don't know, that you just met, you probably need to use a crate, especially when you're gone. So this is my rule, all right? If you adopted a puppy, and I got this from Larry Crone, you should definitely check out any and all videos by Larry Crone of Packmasters Dog Training in Bowling Green, Kentucky. She's waiting. Break! Get it. Good girl. You so happy. She got caught on a scent. Here's the thing. Here's the nugget that I got distracted on, is that you need to crate that dog at night until it's a year old or until you've had the dog for a year. All right? So for 1 year at night, the dog needs to be in the crate. All right? Just commit to it. Until the dog is 2, you need to crate the dog anytime it cannot be directly supervised, including when you leave the house. All right? Until it is 2 years old. So that means at 1, you can start letting it sleep outside the crate, and you can give it a little bit more freedom. Maybe it's a bed at the end of your bed. Maybe it is a placemat. Wherever the dog is comfortable is fine. But the key here is we usually want to put the dog in our bed immediately. And I'll be honest, she sleeps in Trisha's bed every night. But guess who she listens to? She listens to Trisha. she actually listens to Trisha really well. That's why we allow her in the bed, is because she has really good response times. So she does not sleep in my bed, but we have a different relationship. Mila Opie. Good girl. Hey. Good. Get it. Good. Out. Good girl. Oh, that's a good girl. Good girl. All right, so exercise some boundary. Every dog is different. I was told by like 10 different trainers, don't let your dog in the bed. I'm not going to start training until you kick the dog out of the bed. And I've told it to people too. But the key there is exercise some boundaries, because if you don't, the dog's going to think that it's their house. So if they have full run of everything, let's say that you have a nice house in Brentwood and you've got an invisible fence outside and you have a doggy door, that means the dog is loose in the house, they're loose in the yard, and they have free access to the yard. So they actually have more access than you do, because you actually have to open a door. That's creepy, right? Don't do that, because it's putting the dog in a situation where their anxiety is going to be through the roof, because they think that they have to protect and watch this whole entire property, which is very, very overwhelming. So any UPS driver or FedEx driver that comes up, they're like, you're my worst enemy, right? Right. And 2, walkers along the road, kids that are coming over to visit your kids, like it starts to get super, super dangerous. So when you first have a dog come into your home, it is just very important that you exercise some of that structure to not only protect others, but to protect your dog, because it's very likely none of the dogs that we adopt out here have been aggressive in the past. Like, that just doesn't happen unless it's in an addendum and we say, hey, this dog has been aggressive, and you signed a bite addendum to say this dog has put teeth on someone, which very rarely happens, but it does happen. Unless that's what you're looking for. You're like, I want a behavioral dog, you know? Typically, what we find is that those are dogs that never showed that before to us. It was completely We didn't know that they could do that. We didn't know that they had capacity for it. And we're finding more and more that the general public does not understand this whole aspect of structure. And I know that it's going to sound stupid, but that whole aspect of prevention and not letting the dog think that it's their house, that it's their property, that's everything. Because if you can do that, then you already can kind of start to nip things in the bud a little bit. So even Mila, who is very, very trustworthy, on leash, off leash, with dogs, with cats, with kids, with seniors, she's amazing. But guess what? She sleeps in the room all day long until it's time for her to go out. So we do like 6 or 8 rotations a day where the dogs go out, they play, they potty, but she's not allowed to just be laying on the couch when we're letting dogs out, because I don't want to put her under that much stress. It's not fair to her, okay? So do the thing that's right for you, that's easy for you, that's going to also be protective for the dog, and that is use a crate, all right? What kind of crate do you use? Anything that the dog can stand up in, that they can be comfortable in, turn around. They typically, you want to have something that they're not going to try to break out of. If they do, all you need to do is just walk up to the crate and give it a prompt foot tap. Oh, she thinks that I'm telling her down. That's okay. She's so goofy. Give it a prompt foot tap, and then you're just going to walk away from the crate. So very calm, completely non-emotional. You want to just give it a quick bump and tell the dog, no, you're not going to do that. Just very calmly. It's not something where you're yelling at the dog and you're like trying to be a jerk to him. That's just not going to work. And it's also way too much arousal. So if you have that much explosive arousal, then the dog is probably going to feed off that a little bit. So as you show the dog, hey, this is a place that you can be by yourself, this is a place that you can eat, this is a place that you can chew on your Benebone in the crate, that becomes kind of like their safe space. So as you're giving them exposure and you're increasing their ability to meet people as they're coming to visit you, they have a place that they can go to when they're done. And you can leave that room door open and say, all right, she's going to bed, right? And there have been times where Mila, as well behaved as she is, she goes, I think I'm going to put myself to bed. And I go, awesome, here you go. Poop. She goes in there, she can go sleep. Good. But she's just been waiting for me for several minutes. Good girl. What a good girl. Oh, I love you. Good job. Good. Look at that happy girl. Good. Yeah, you love that ball. You love that ball. It's a little rope ball. Get that ball. Get that ball. Get it. I want you to growl a little bit. Can you growl? Arrgh. You gonna growl? Give me that ball. Arrgh. Get it. Oh, get that ball. Arrgh. Arrgh. Good. Out. Out. Good. Good. Break. Good job. Awesome. All right, you guys. So ultimately, when it comes down to behavioral issues, reactivity, and aggression, it's not something where it's not a manifestation where your dog is just aggressive or they're not, or they're reactive or they're not, or they're behavioral or they're not. They're behavioral, reactive, aggressive because they're dogs who have been put in a certain situation. All right. I've seen dogs that they look like they want to absolutely rip your arm off from inside of a kennel at a stressed out shelter. And then you get them out and they're like, oh, hi. They're like your best friend ever. So there are dogs that they just don't show well. Well, guess what? It's because they're dogs. They don't like to be trapped. They don't like to be pent up and not given stimulation. You've got to have something every single day that you're doing with that dog. It doesn't have to be very long, maybe 5 to 15 minutes a day of fetch and tug, structured walking, a little sniff walk, a little roll in the grass. And you don't need to have a bunch of acreage for that. You could do that on a median at a road. Like you could go to the park and let the dog do that in 30 feet of grass, you know. You can use a long leash, not a retractable. You could use a retractable, I guess, if the dog's small enough. But just a long leash that you can let the dog drag and you're holding the other end of it. and you can just let him run around and sniff things. It's good for him. It's good for him, huh? Good girl. Go. Chow. I'll do one more throw. Good girl. Yeah, good girl. Nice. Good job. What a good Miwa. There's so good. Are you tired? Yeah, are you tired? You want a cookie? You want a cookie? Good girl. Good. Very nice. All right, you guys, I'm going to be done with this, but if you have questions, I want you to write down in the comments down there what your questions are. It's very likely that you do not have an aggressive dog. Not only that, that you don't have a reactive dog, you just have a dog that's been put under a certain set of circumstances that we can change today. All right? A little bit of training, a little bit of structure, you're going to be just fine. Okay? Love you guys very much. Again, Matt Burnett with Allegiant Canine. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment down below or shoot me an email at matt@allegiantcanine.com. We'll talk to you guys soon.